might be preparing to drop next-gen consoles as soon as 2019, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the pause menu. I'm Corey, this is Chris, and there are reports out that Sony might be prepping the PlayStation 5 for a surprise 2019 release. The story basically goes that the Sony is working on something with high-end chips that basically allude to a PlayStation 5 coming out within the next fiscal year. So, quickly, PlayStation 5 2019, yes or no?
Hell no. Too soon. I mean, just the whole idea is that we're hearing vaguely little rumors about it, that we've heard really nothing other than that we have our whole lineup for the PlayStation 4 out, basically. And, I mean, like, we've heard nothing. Like, it's hard for me to believe that this console is going to be coming out next year. That PlayStation is going to be that far of a jump ahead of everybody to release a new console. And, like, what games would you have for it?
It's a good question. And, you know, this is something I do think about, and I read all the stories and everything. And while I want to say no, I also wouldn't be surprised. Because something you just said basically is like, we haven't heard anything about it. But we haven't heard anything from Sony. Like, we haven't heard a peep. Like, we don't... The only game that we really know that is not coming out this year, or that's announced that's coming out within the next year, is like The Last of Us 2 still doesn't have a release date. Or Death Stranding. But everything else is basically... They haven't announced anything else.
Well, I feel like they don't need to.
They don't need to, but at the same time...
Because they have it so stacked already.
But at the same time, like, you announced Last of Us 2 so far ahead in Death Stranding. Like, to me, it's crazy that they don't only have Last of Us 2 next year, right? Like, they have Ghost of Tsushima, like, but that's it. To me, that seems crazy. And one of the only reasons I could think of is that they're not talking about it because these games are coming out on both platforms. They're going to be coming out on PS4 and the PlayStation 5. And again, it seems far-fetched, but they have announced that PlayStation 4 sales have sort of started to slow down. They're still selling, though. So to me, it also would seem kind of crazy to be like, the PlayStation 4 is doing fine. It's not doing as well as it was, but people are still buying it. So why would you release a new platform now? But then again, you also have to look at Xbox, and if they release in 2020, like, next-gen consoles are coming. I think 2020 is the absolute latest.
Yeah, I agree.
But does Sony want to beat them? Like, if Sony wants to beat them to the punch, they have to release next year. So
I agree. I agree with that. I mean, I feel like if they do, then we will. Again, I feel like we'll have a powerful console with not necessarily games that we would want to play on it. I mean, yes. I mean, if they do that, where PS4 and PS5 games are compatible and so forth. I mean, but again, people are already playing them on their PS4. You know, right. To the point. I feel like to do that, they have to announce at least a big game to go with it. I mean, at least one big game. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've had that problem when the Xbox One came out. Like, we had, what was the zombie game?
Dead Rising 3?
Yeah.
Dead Rising 3, Rise.
And, like, FIFA.
Forza, yeah.
And that was really it. But and after that, I mean, like, I feel like we didn't have a lot that just, like shotgunned out. Again, I feel like if they do, I feel like we'll just be lacking the PS5 games, I guess, when it releases.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when you kind of look at their IP portfolio, like, the only thing I could think of is maybe they pull out Horizon. Like, maybe that's the big next-gen game. We haven't heard anything from Guerrilla since Horizon.
True.
So could they make a sequel in that amount of time? That was a 2017? So, like, that's not a ton of time, but that's a lot of time. So, but you're right. Like, I think they need a big IP for it, because you can't just put it out there and just be like, well, we're trying to beat Microsoft, so we're going to pull a Sega and just put it out there. But I think the number one question is do they care what Microsoft is doing? I mean, they have more than doubled the Xbox One sales. Do they care?
I feel like at this point they don't have to care, but knowing Sony, I feel like it's something they just will do, though. And, like, I mean, and it isn't, and, like, I feel like to this point, I mean, it's Sony taking over Microsoft. I mean, they have been for the past couple of years now, and they're still at that decent height where it's like, just keep it going. You know, they have they're in a good place right now, and they saw that the success worked from the last time it happened. I mean, maybe they'll have a repeat from the new PlayStation 5. I mean, that success sells, and we saw that.
Yeah, and it's the only thing I can think of is try to think like an analyst and, you know, like a Sony exec is like, do they care what Microsoft is doing? Maybe not, but at the same time, they have felt what happens when Microsoft undercuts them when they come out first. The Xbox 360 took a huge chunk of Sony's market that generation. So how do you beat that? You release first and you release cheaper.
You know what? You know what the PlayStation 5 is going to be? This is just totally random out there.
I don't know.
You know what they like to do? They like to steal things from Nintendo.
Make a
Remember the
PlayStation Switch?
And yeah, it's going to be portable. Just wait. I mean, I guess they kind of did that with the PSP.
The Vita, yeah.
You know, how you can play that as a controller and
Right.
connect that to your TV. But I just remember the PlayStation Move, man.
Yeah, Wiimote, yeah. But that's the other thing, PlayStation VR.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, but PlayStation VR, like...
Oh, it would have to be adaptable to the
right.
PlayStation 5.
Like, or do they make another one?
Oh,
like,
you can't, right? Can you? Would you?
I feel like you have to. Like, the PSVR is good, but it's not great. And it's... Again, it's... I feel like for Sony to almost, like, make sure that they don't get the PS3 syndrome of it's too expensive, the competition is better, is you have to do it first.
I think they've learned from that lesson.
Right.
At least I hope they have.
Right. But the other thing is price. Like, so if it comes out next year, it's not going to be the most powerful console. It's just not, because Microsoft is going to have way more time. But as you've seen, that doesn't necessarily matter because the Xbox One X is still being outsold by the PS4. So it's how do you make sure that you're cheaper, as well as you make sure that the people that might want to switch, maybe they want to switch back, you just give them a console first because they're more likely to stick with it. So it'd be an interesting strategy. Like,
again, like I feel like the success of the PS4 for the past couple of years hasn't really been its console itself, which is a powerful console, but we know the Xbox One X is stronger than the Pro.
Right.
Is that it's got the games, it's got the lineup.
Sure.
I feel like that's one of the big hooks that's bringing people into the PS4. And again, and these games will be playable on PS5 with newer, hopefully PS5 games. So again, I feel like that's somewhere Microsoft has been lacking right now. Again, you can have a strong console, but if you don't have games to back it up, I mean, what do you got? So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if they keep that rhythm up, no matter if it's stronger than the new Xbox, as long as they got the games, the exclusives, they're going to rock it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I don't know. It would be kind of nuts to see them pull the trigger on the PS5 so quick.
I can't believe it. It's just hard to imagine already.
It is, but it isn't. Like, I mean, that will be 6 years after the PS4, which is a long time. It's only 3 years after the Pro, but it's still 6 years from that original model.
Even I feel like if you would do that, like I feel like you would want to release the PS5 as soon as you can, with all the games that are coming out in that year, so you can play those games on your PS5 and not on your PS4.
Yeah.
But again, like, how far are they on their PS5? How much do we really know about this console?
I mean, they're making it. Like, we know that.
They're running out of chips or something.
Okay, yeah, supposedly the chips are going to delay it. But no, it'd be interesting for sure, and it would be a huge, console war thing of just, like, kind of trying to undercut them. But at the same time, history kind of shows that in some instances, when you sort of just drop a console like that, it can have negative ramifications if it's not thought out to the T. Like, if it's not a big enough upgrade over the Pro, and if it's significantly, we live in an era to where Microsoft could easily, if Sony announces the PS4 or the PlayStation 5 and the specs get out there, Microsoft can start doing PR of saying, like, look at how much more powerful a machine's going to be.
Not even that. I feel like Microsoft will be able to adjust their prices willing too, depending on how the PS5 release and how much it is. I mean, I feel like you can definitely vary like how much your console is depending on what the competitor is at the moment.
Sure.
Like whether this more like powerful console is $100 more to $50 more. Like I feel like that's an adjustment they could make easily. Could depend on how many more they could sell compared to the competitor.
Yeah. So I mean, like I don't think if they were to drop it quick, it'd be like a Sega Saturn situation where it's just like, okay, like what are we supposed to do? But it'd be interesting to see how much. What they could come up with a year before Microsoft could. Like, and supposedly they might be working really close with AMD to make sure that it's not just they're not just putting it out there because they have to. It's going to be significantly more powerful, but it's fair to say they're both going to have Ryzen in it, but what form of Ryzen are they going to have in it?
Just to ask you, would it be a mid-year or a late-year release?
For sure late. I don't think you could do it.
Right?
Yeah, I don't think you could do it earlier. Yeah. I mean, the most part, Death Stranding, that could even be a PlayStation 5 game.
That'd be a great game.
And also, I mean, Last of Us, the original Last of Us, was the final game on the PS4. Really, Last of Us 2 is coming, so maybe that's going to be the big final PS4 exclusive even. So there's just so many avenues to where Sony is being really quiet right now with games, and they've got their big games. We've known about them for a long time. So it's interesting that they're usually the ones that sort of have a little bit more outlook and they announce things sooner. So, but we haven't heard a lot from, especially Gorilla. Gorilla, we haven't heard a thing from.
I'm going to agree. I think they will release the console before Microsoft releases theirs. I feel like they're in that pattern right now, but I'm still sticking 2020.
I could see them doing an early 2020 even. Maybe like that March area that like Nintendo did. I think that could make sense too.
Or like I said, really late 19.
Right, like in November.
Really late.
Yeah, so. But that's going to do it for this episode. Let us know when you think the PlayStation 5 is coming out. You know, what type of things are important to you? You know, is it the price? Is it the power? You know, what is going to sell you on the PS4? PlayStation 5. Shenmue 3. There you go. PlayStation 5 launch title. Let us know in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us out. And we will see you next time.
Say it's August 19th. Shenmue.